Hello everyone. On today's episode of Hillbilly Repairs that no normal person should ever have to do, we are working on the Bobcat T200 again, and I believe that I have finally found a permanent fix for this Pintle lever. So the issue at hand, and I don't really want to crawl in there, I need a break, my knees are killing me, but the issue we've been having with this side in particular, this piece in particular, there's a lot of issues with the machine in general. But this Pintle lever, the pinch bolt, which you can see sticking out there because I haven't tightened it yet, right there. Okay, so the problem is this sits on a square shaft, and that square shaft is worn enough that if you put the Pintle lever on there and tighten it, what will happen is over time it will go ahead and vibrate down on the worn part of the shaft, and then it'll be loose and you can't steer. So after trying to figure out a solution, that didn't involve pulling that little shaft out, which probably requires pulling the hydrostat, and I mean, who wants to do that? Because I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but we're kind of in the middle of a not easily accessible place. So what I finally figured out was that I could slide a piece of this square tubing over. And this square tubing, I don't know what the exact dimensions are. I didn't measure it, mostly because I don't care. But a 7/8 washer will slide over that square shaft down there, sorry. Okay, a 7/8 washer will slide over that. And so a 7/8 bolt will fit very snugly inside of this square tubing. So I imagine this is just inch square tubing. Now it is kind of loose on there, but all it has to do is hold the Pintle lever up. And it's set in such a way that it will not be rubbing on the seal, so that we shouldn't have a hydrostat leak there. And it can't vibrate down any further. And so then the Pintle lever, once tight, should stay there. It won't be able to drift down. That's the plan. Or if it does drift down, it'll just hit a stop, and then, Bob's your uncle, it's all fixed. So, go over here, I'll show you the fit that bolt has. Originally, what I was trying to do was get some washers to work, and the problem I was running into is that the washers were too big around, and I was also trying to figure out something that wasn't going to rub on the hydrostat housing or the seal where that Pintle shaft is at, because I don't want to wear that seal out, because then we'd have a massive leak. And we don't want that. So, yes, a 7/8 washer will fit over that, but I want you guys to notice on this 7/8 bolt, and it's kind of hard to tell on camera, but it's a very tight fit on this. It's what I would call a hillbilly precision fit, or a farmer precision fit. And see, now it won't come off, of course, but whatever. Turns out I didn't actually need that second piece. So last night, as I was trying to figure out what the heck I could do with this thing, I went back to the shop. I had a piece of this square tubing, and I cut it. I cut a couple of different sizes. There's this width, and then I cut another piece about half as wide, because I wanted that Pintle lever to sit down on there as far as possible. And I don't know if you noticed or not, but there's actually a little bit of a gap. It's not completely flush on there. And so I will need to, when I put it back together, it should go ahead and work. But what I may have to do, see if I can get you in there a little closer. What I may have to do is file down my spacer so that the top of the shaft is flush with the top of the Pintle lever. That's what I may have to do. But otherwise, I think that's going to be as permanent a fix as I really can do. This thing is to run for a little bit, because we plan on trading it for a variety of reasons. It's not really powerful enough, but there are some other things going on. I know the hydrostat's screwed up, but it's not helping that the steering is always loose because of that damn thing. And then there's some other things as well that I'm going to try and spruce up while I'm in here. But this thing's been getting the royal treatment lately. I've already sorry, wind. I redid the battery connections for like the third time, and every time it just gets a little bit better because I do them a little bit differently. But I finally took the time and did them right. So in theory, the battery connections aren't going to get loose. It's had a starter put on it. I'm going to tighten the fan belt because it's super loose. And you know, even though we're going to get rid of this, in my opinion, it doesn't pay to do a half-assed job. You might as well do the best job you can. If for no other reason, then I don't have to come back in here and screw with it again later. So I will get all this tightened up, reassembled, and we'll make sure that it's going to work. If it doesn't work, I will let you guys know before we end the video here. Well, it did go back together, and I adjusted, and I may regret doing this, but on that plate there are 2 bolts on each side. Those are for guide blocks that those rollers on each Pintle lever hit, and I adjusted this one so that there was a lot of slack in it, so I adjusted it so now they're both about the same. And hopefully that didn't mess with the steering, because I had the steering all dialed in, because when we first got this, finding neutral so you could start it was a real pain. So I did do that, and then I also came back here. I was going to pull, excuse me, I was going to pull the tensioner off and lubricate it, but the bolt that holds it in on the bottom takes a 1/4 Allen wrench, and that is on there so damn stiff that when I started pulling on it, I was moving the bolt a little bit, but it freed it up and it's moving again, and the belt is nice and tight, and the tensioner is moving like it should. So I'm just going to leave well enough alone, put the air cleaner back in, and we'll get this thing fired up and see how it's going to work. Now, in theory, after all the crap I've done to this, fixing the battery connections and tightening the alternator belt, putting a starter on it, and fixing the steering for the 3rd goddamn time, hopefully this will go ahead and run. But you can see those 2 bolts right there. It's really difficult to hold everything. It helps if you have a second person, or if you're not super lazy like I am, if you can like hold these in place while you adjust stuff there, that helps. But to really get the steering dialed in, if it's screwed up on a system like this, you got to have the machine running, and that's kind of sketchy. But anyway, I'll get it all put back together, and then we'll fire it up and see if I broke anything else. Oh my! All right, we're all back together. Put our safety bar down because it won't work without that. Key on. Yep. Uh-oh. Oh, that's weird. It's not... It looks like it's blinking on camera, and I was looking through the camera, but it's static right here. That's cool. I didn't realize that before. All right, our parking brake is on. That's full throttle. That's... Okay. Uh-oh. Hang on. Okay, so I mentioned I messed with that guide block on this side, on that top plate. I should not have done that. That was dumb. It was tracking even worse than before. So I think I've got her dialed in and fixed. I'm sorry about the wind. So to adjust it, and it's kind of sketchy to do by yourself, but you know, I'm me, so I'm obviously professional. It's fine if I do it, but you shouldn't. So you get your cab up in the air, get it secured so it doesn't crush you, and then you're going to want to make sure your parking brake works. It's a very important step. And then what you're going to want to do is start it up. You don't have to run it at high speed. The reason I don't say run it at high speed is because at low speed, with that vibration, that's when it's really going to want to pull, you know, your levers around and make it all jerky and such. So you get it running, you know, give her high idle, and then get in there with a 9/16 wrench, and you can get those 2 bolts loose and get that block tapped over. You can kind of move this lever with your hand, and then, because you'll be kneeling down to do all this, you can lean into it with your hip and hold it in place, and you'll hear the hydrostat want to grab, but the parking brake won't let it go. So it's very important your parking brake works, or the machine will take off and you'll get hurt, and there's no need in that. And then you can just loosen them a little bit, get in there and tap them with something to get them set. Do one side at a time. If you have to do both, do one side at a time. And then when you're done, before you let the cab down, make sure you rev it up through various, engine RPM ranges to make sure that it's not going to want to grab or do something stupid. And then you should be good to let the cab back down and test it and see if it's good. But the real test is that if the parking brake is on, if you can hop up there and fire this up at low idle or high idle, and it's not wanting to grab and jerk and all that, you're probably fine. That's a really good indicator you got it set right. It's a pain in the ass to do, but that's how you do it, just if anyone was curious. It's kind of a crash course. I would do a full video on it, but I'd get way too mad way too fast, and then the video would fall apart. So, I'm going to drop the cab back down, and we'll test her one more time, and then it should be dialed in just right. I should not have messed with that damn guide block, though. I knew better, and I did it anyway. Alright, well, it steers like it should now. It still doesn't drive like it should, but that's hydrostat problems that we inherited when we bought it that somebody did not disclose. And I don't know if we're going to fix that or if we'll just trade the machine and, we'll actually tell the next person, like, hey, this has hydrostat issues. But I went ahead and shoved this locust tree over just because I'm such a nice guy. And I felt like it. I wanted to make sure that everything was okay. And that T200's got a fair amount of power if you can get traction. This was one of those locusts. It was dead, but it had those thorns on it. We don't like those. And there's more of them. One of these days, we'll get this whole Bermuda bottom cleaned up and it'll look even more pretty. So, with all that being said, Bobcat's as fixed as it's going to get for right now. Hopefully that piece of square tubing will hold and I won't have to go in there and mess with the steering anymore because my back and my knees are already tired of it. So, I appreciate you guys watching. I'm going to go deal with the wind. It's probably blowing up some inclement weather because it's that time of year. And we'll just deal with that, and guess I'll see you guys in the next one. So thank you for watching. Let me know if you have any questions. Put them in the comments. I'll help you out if I can. If you need help repairing your T200, because I got a whole manual for it. So anyway, you guys take care. We'll see you in the next one.